Hi, my name is Brian Hylton, and I'm a graduate student at Mouton University. This summer 2017, I'm taking a leadership and team development course taught by Dr. Sanchez, HRT 6570.E1, which is a distance learning course. This project is about the Blake-Mouton leadership grid, the fundamentals of the Blake-Mouton leadership grid theory and its application in a 21st century setting. My name is Brian Hylton, and I have an MBA through Mouton University. I graduated earlier this year with a Master's of Business Administration in March of 2017. I'm currently pursuing a dual master's in human resources, training and development, and my anticipated graduation date is early mid 2018. I have a undergrad bachelor's degree in political science. I minored in secondary education at CUNY, the City University of New York, and I also have an associate's degree in liberal arts from the City University of New York. I currently work for a municipal agency in New York City. I'm a newly promoted community associate, and my salary range is from $41,000 to $59,000. I aspire to be a director, a chief, or a commissioner level manager in this agency. The agency I work for has tremendous opportunity for advancement, with approximately 6,000 full-time employees and another 3,000 seasonal employees during peak seasons. My future aspirations are to be in the administrative management or human resources division to utilize my education from Mouton University. Enough about me, and back onto the project. This slide is the table of contents layout. On slide 6, we will begin with quotations from the authors. In slide 10, we will examine the makeup of the Blake-Mouton grid. In slide 15, we will examine the concern for production and the concern for people. By slide 18, we're going more in depth and we're talking more about the 5 leadership styles. Towards slide 43, we're doing a literature review, and we're reviewing the Nehar article and the Koch, Killiclaire, Yazikuglo article. In conclusion, on slide 50, I will provide a conclusion and a reference page to end this project. Okay, quotations supporting the use of the Blake-Mouton managerial grid. Peter Nordhaus, who we've been studying for this class, is a professor emeritus of communication in the School of Communication at Western Michigan University. Mr. Nordhaus states that the managerial grid is perhaps the best known model of managerial behavior. Luft von Nehar, who is the Senior Secretary of Ministry and Rural Development, believes that the Blake-Mouton managerial grid was a major step in leadership studies. Mr. Koch, Killiclaire, and Yazikuglo are PhD professors at Gazi University in the Department of Tourism Management. They say that the managerial grid is a managerial style based on a concern for people and the concern for production dimensions. Okay, let's discuss the makeup of the Blake Mouton managerial grid. Blake and Mouton's managerial grid was the most used organizational and training development tool. Okay, this slide is an illustration of the Blake Mouton managerial grid in point form. This grid measures a leadership style by placing their behavior, the manager's behavior, at various coordinates based on their leadership characteristics. The Blake and Mouton managerial grid was developed in 1964 by Robert R. Blake and Jake Mouton. This grid was used to design and explain how the leaders in organizations help to achieve organizational goals through two factors: the concern for production and the concern for people. This grid is a grid with an x-axis and a y-axis. The concern for production is the x-axis, and the concern for people is the y-axis. Both have a low to high range of 1 to 9, which is the low to the high, and the results are it produces 5 general leadership styles. Okay, illustrated here is the concern for production and the concern for people. This grid is showing the x-axis and the y-axis. The concern for production. A leader is driven and concerned on achieving organizational tasks. They pay close attention to policy decisions, have concern for what the organization is attempting to accomplish or the organizational goals, is heavily involved in processes of issues of the organization, is mindful of sales volume, workload, and new product development. The concern for people refers to how a manager or leader tends to the people and attends to their needs within the organization. This process involves building organizational commitment and trust, providing good work solutions, and promoting good social relations and promoting the personal worth of subordinates. Okay, this slide describes the 5 leadership styles of the Blake Mouton leadership model. The first is authority compliance, 9.1 on the grid, marked as 9.1 on the grid. The country club management style is marked as 1-9 coordinates on the grid. The impoverished management is 1.1, middle of the road management is 5-5, and the coordinates for team management style is 9-9. Okay, let's discuss the authoritarian compliance, which is 9-1 on the grid. This leadership style has a heavy emphasis on job requirements and tasks. Leaders are task-oriented. They believe people should do their job without debate. No communication with subordinates besides instructions. Employees are regarded as tools towards getting the task done. Authoritarian compliance continued is dependent on high output and assigned job duties and a de-emphasis of the employee. Communication with subordinates are usually task-related and not beyond the job functions. There's a heavy emphasis on telling others what to do and without question. If subordinates are to oppose them, their decisions and those actions are viewed as taboo. These are viewed as demanding bosses that are controlling and overbearing. The leaders that exhibit this style attempt to arrange conditions of work where employee interference is minimized by being rigid, tough, or by the book. This style is also based on being a results-driven style, and managers are sometimes too critical of their workers. Leaders of this style create situations where employees may not thrive. It concentrates on laying blame instead of fixing and preventing it from occurring. It does not take into account their subordinates' interests. Lutfun Nahar, who we're going to examine his article later on in the presentation, states about authoritarian compliance or task management theory. He believes it's a task-oriented people and it focuses on tasks. Managers who exhibit this style are autocratic, controlling, always exercising their power and authority. They are oftentimes dictatorial, and this style is considered a please me or perish style. Managers who subscribe to this theory believe that people should be fired and replaced. Koch, Killiclare, and Yaziklu believe the authoritarian compliance or produce or perish style is that managers only care about high levels of production. The employees and their needs are unimportant. Employees are expected to perform because they are being monetarily compensated. Punishments are regularly used as a means to achieve company goals. Okay, here's a couple of illustrations of an authoritarian dictator style. We have a boss basically pointing at the worker, scaring the worker, and just splurting out their directives. Okay, we have another graphic where one person's ideas or rules are set. The people just basically have no say. And that's illustrated in the graphic where the blue individuals have what would be tape across their mouths. And this is considered a dictatorship style. These bosses are always giving orders. They're never receiving feedback or recommendations of improvement. Their orders are basically the bottom line, and they're to be done or else. In some cases, it resembles a dictatorship between manager and subordinate. The next style is the country club management style, 1-9 on the grid. Leaders that fit this mold have a low concern for task accomplishment and have a high concern for interpersonal relationships. Within this style, there's a de-emphasis of production. They usually make sure that the subordinates' needs are being taken care of, and managers are eager to help and are comforting and uncontroversial. Continuing with the country club management, there is a high concern on the grid with people and a low concern for task accomplishment. With this style, they promote rewards and it's an amicable work setting to achieve goals. Leaders of this style usually create a work atmosphere that is comfortable and friendly. Due to this friendly nature, they are most prone to not being able to exert punitive influence. They are afraid to exert punitive discipline because they fear that they will not be liked. For instance, if they write someone up, they feel they won't be liked amongst all the other workers. This style heavily encourages teams to accomplish their goals. Leaders of this style usually create a work atmosphere that is comfortable and friendly. Luth van Nahar article regarding country club management believes this to be a collegial style. According to Luth van Nahar, this style is characterized by the leader providing insight and thoughtful attention to subordinates, providing subordinates with a friendly and comfortable environment, and this style usually yields questionable results since the focus is low on task, thus hampering production goals. Koch, Killeclaire, and Yazıcıoğlu regard the country club management style 1.9 on the grid. They believe the managers that utilize this approach pay particular attention to the security and comfort of their employees. The leaders that utilize this style also hope that performance will be increased if particular attention is paid to subordinates. Results will be low as productivity takes a secondary position to subordinates' well-being. Illustrations of the country club management style are basically the boss getting along with their subordinates. Okay? They aim to please their subordinates, and they aim to make sure that their employees are happy. Managers that employ the country club management style embrace their workers and care for the security and comfort of employees. These managers can be personable, and they hope productivity increases since they are very friendly to their subordinate workers. Oftentimes, though, this style fails, and it usually leads to a drop in worker activity. Okay, the impoverished management style, which is 1.1 on the grid. Leaders that prescribe to this leadership style of management have low concern for both the task and the relationship with subordinates. Leaders that assume this style act like they are uninvolved and withdrawn. They have very little contact with followers. They're described as indifferent and non-committal. They're apathetic to the process and resigned in judgment and opinion. Impoverished management. The leader is generally unconcerned with production goals and relationships with subordinates. They usually do the lowest amount of work to keep their job. They are going through the motions and are usually withdrawn and uninvolved with the process of guiding their employees. They are the type to give an order and never follow up on it and see if it was carried out correctly. These leaders in this style exhibit behaviors that are indifferent and apathetic to organizational goals. Leaders of this ilk detach themselves from the leadership process. Most probable is they give minimal effort and the organization suffers in the process while subordinate development is delayed. Leaders of this style are most inclined to be defiant towards upper management. Okay, Luth van Nahar believes the impoverished leader are managers of this style. They usually exhibit low results regarding the product and exercise minimum effort. They don't care about employee satisfaction and usually have a flippant attitude towards work deadlines. there's a lot of disharmony and disorganization within the organization, and those are usually the prevailing results with this approach. Coke, Killer Claire, and Yaz Igloo believe that managers have low concern for people in production in this style. Managers sometimes utilize this style to stay out of trouble. Managers protect their seniority and job title by not getting involved with subordinates and possible problems. They are not being held responsible for any mistakes, and the main iota for managers that inhabit this category are those traits. Some illustrations of an impoverished leader. Basically, a person that doesn't care. Okay? Sticking their head in the sand. They give the orders and they just take off. Okay? We have one illustration where the manager is just up and, he says we need more boots on the ground. Doesn't care to help. Okay? Managers that employ the impoverished style are usually depicted as people who do not care and who are lost. Company profits are certain to take a plunge, while managers who are apathetic to organizational and subordinate goals are in power. Let's discuss the middle of the road management style, which is 5.5 on Blake Mouton's managerial grid. Managers that employ this leadership style are compromisers. They have a halfway or middling approach that they employ towards goals and subordinates. They find a middle ground between caring for workers and emphasizing work to be completed. This approach keeps morale at a satisfactory level. Leaders of this style usually like to avoid conflict, and sometimes they swallow their pride in order to not impede progress. Additionally, these leaders are typically compromisers that have an intermediate concern at best for production and subordinates. They're usually the type of manager who is expedient and prefers holding a middle ground. They're usually one who prefer to have soft pedal agreements. They are the type to give an order and never follow up. Leaders that prescribe to this style balance necessity of work and carry satisfactory morale ratings. They give up some of the push for production and some of the attention of employee needs. Lutfa Nehar believes that this style is a balancing style. It balances the needs of the people and the goals of the organization. Usually it results in average performance. The leader does not push people to explore their performance limits. Okay, some illustrations of the middle road management. Middle road management is just simply average. It's middle of the pack. Okay, you really can't expect any extraordinary results from average work. I put in a picture of a team of average Joes. Average Joes means they're not performing to their full capability. Usually, leaders that tend to employ a middle-of-the-road management approach will receive results that are middling. Production and subordinate capacities are not pushed or explored. By maintaining a balanced approach to organizational goals and subordinates, the manager can expect results that are fairly average most of the time. Team management 9.9. Managers who employ this leadership style place a high emphasis on tasks and their subordinate relationships. A leader utilizing this approach stimulates participation and fosters a high degree of teamwork. The organization can be rest assured that this individual enjoys working. Leaders that employ this style, they satisfy their subordinate basic needs, ensuring commitment to organizational goals. Continuing with team management, it places high priorities on both production and people. It is generally high task and high relationship oriented. The leader usually is a model employee and has high standards. Managers that possess these traits promote high degrees of participation and teamwork. Subordinates usually feel as if they are working for the common good and have a common stake in the organization. Interpersonal relationships between manager and subordinate is generally positive utilizing this style. The leaders make priorities clear and behave in an open-minded manner. Mr. Nahar believes that this style is characterized by leaders who place people's needs above all else and who are high-task oriented managers. Leaders in this category empower their subordinates, and followers feel committed and trusting towards the organization. A team environment that pushes expectation and limits is created and fostered. This style garners high results and leaves employees feeling accomplished and satisfied with their work. Kokilaclaire and Yaziklu believe that managers within this style place a high priority on organizational goals and place high concern for subordinates. Managers that employ this style encourage commitment and teamwork. The leaders usually allow employees to be themselves at work. This style is characterized by allowing employees to operate as if they are constructive parts of the organization. Some illustration of the team management style. 9.9 on Blake Mouton's managerial grid. Okay? Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay? It's a photo of, cooperation and people reaching their goals and, doing everything that they can to be part of the team. And productivity usually increases with this style. This style approach places heavy emphasis on managers reaching tasks and placing a great deal of concern for their employees that carry out those tasks. This style is likely to increase production and build more trusting relationships among the employees in the organization. Subordinates feel committed to the organization as a result and likely will be encouraged for their efforts by the managers who supervise them. Okay, brief literature review of Understanding of the Use of Blake and Mouton's Model as a Tool for Analyzing and Improving Management of Conflict of Organizations by Hylton Nahar. Okay, the Nahar article literature review. Nahar's article revolves around a descriptive analysis of Blake and Mouton's managerial grid and if it is useful in improving conflict within modern organizations. The author, Mr. Nahar, stresses that conflict in the workplace is neither good for organizational goals or for the morale of subordinates. Nahar believes that in order to achieve results, people in the workplace need to be harmonious with each other. The attitudes, behavior, and contradictions at work usually equal conflict in the workplace. In a workplace setting, there is functional conflict strategies that improve subordinates' work performance. Dysfunctional behavior leads to poor group performance. Nahar believes that the Blake Mouton model was a major step in leadership studies. Nahar believes the best managerial style is the middle of the road management. It's his best option to be employed in the workplace. Limitations, improvements, suggestions, and critiques of the Nahar article. The author did not perform any qualitative or quantitative research in his study. His preference of leadership style was based solely on dealing with conflict management issues. The author did not provide any research methodologies. Naher provides a sound basis and action plan in dealing with communication issues in employee-manager relationships. The article seems to be written in a colloquial fashion. It is surprising that this appears in a double-blind, peer-reviewed journal. The article recognizes the friction and delicate relationship that managers have with their subordinates. Okay, a literature review of the Analyzing Leadership Styles of Turkish Managers in the Scope of the Blake and Mouton's Managerial Grid by Hakan Koch, Arzu Kilikler, and Irfan Yazıklı. Yazıklı article review. This article collected data from 771 managers from private and public sectors. The aim of the study was to see if there were any correlations between a manager's personal attributes such as age, gender, and education level, to see if there were any consistencies or trends concerning production goals and concern for people. This article includes many graphs, and data was collected on a variety of factors via questionnaire. Factors included how people and concern for production varies between different age groups. It places a positive correlation between a manager's age and their concern for people in production. Through statistical polling and observation, does not see any obvious disparities between female managers and male managerial styles. The author's article states that those with a manager's degree have more efficient managerial behaviors. A master's degree have more efficient managerial behaviors, according to these authors. Some limitations, improvements, suggestions, and critiques of the Koch, Kilikler, and Yazıklı article. The authors performed quantitative research in their study, which was informative. The limitations of this study were that it did not include a larger sample size. The research methodologies used were quantitative. The authors provided their study and the results in a clean, easy-to-read fashion. The conclusions look forced or already realized in reporting. Their hypotheses seem to confer that people cannot be categorized based on age or gender. Suggestions to improve the study include analyzing a broader group and not just in one country, and possibly increasing the study group. Implications of the two studies on a 21st century workforce. Blake and Mouton's managerial grid is a stellar classification of leadership styles. Although formulated in 1964, the grid effect on describing leader-subordinate relationships is phenomenal. Both studies respect the managerial grid and suggest that it is important to have this classification system. Studies were conducted in 2013 and 2014, fairly recently, and they're proving that the grid is a valid indicator of performance and importance in 21st century practice and theorem. Although one study concentrates on conflict within an organization and another assesses the value of the grid in a small country, they both tie in the fact that the grid is an effective performance measurement indicator. The grid is still relevant because much of it involves human nature and their interactions with people. Conclusion. The Blake-Mouton managerial grid is a staple in communication and leadership evaluation theories. The grid has value in today's society to the fact that people have stayed the same and not have changed. People have feelings, egos, and ulterior motives. People in 1964 are somewhat the same behaviorally as they were in 2017. People still eat, drink, and have underlying mental illness, are developing, and their behavior for the most part has gone unchanged. Individuals are living creatures with hearts that are beating, lungs that are pumping air, and blood that are filling ventricles. Lest robots start assuming positions, the dynamic with managers and subordinates will be unchanged. Couple that in with seniority, aspirations to do well, rewards, civil service protections, law, and the such, and we will have the same status quo relationships in the workplace. Okay, this is the end of my project. Thank you for watching it. I want to give a big shout out to my son Jace for helping me with this project, Jace Hylton. I definitely appreciate it and love you. Let's go to a reference page. Okay, these are the articles that I read for this project, and that is also the textbook that I used to wrap this project up. So thank you for listening to my project. I appreciate it. Come back soon. Come back next semester. Good luck to everybody that's reading this. Good luck to my fellow students. Thank you, Professor Sanchez.